Welcome to part 2 of our story. After that, Vincent vanished from view, only to be quietly urged by Eric to leave. Frustrated, Vincent shouted into the empty air, catching the attention of the police, though they saw nothing unusual. Who was he really talking to? Gradually, Vincent calmed down and admitted to the police that he had called out Edgar's name earlier that morning, but Edgar had ignored him. Their tension escalated in a narrow alley, where a fierce argument broke out. At one point, Vincent even grabbed Edgar by the collar, and in the struggle, he injured his forehead, leaving a stain on his shirt. In a sudden turn, Edgar stripped off his shirt, hurled it at Vincent, and walked away without a backward glance. Thinking Edgar had gone to school, Vincent let him go and discarded the shirt in the trash. Vincent's and Cassie's editor was a close friend, and after Vincent's detainment, he personally escorted Cassie home. She couldn't hold back her most pressing question: did Vincent kill Edgar? Reflecting on the past, Cassie felt a strange relief. Vincent had never been a good man, and in truth, she had secretly been involved with another lover. If Edgar had really died, she thought, she wouldn't have had to deal with Vincent anymore and could have been with someone else. Meanwhile, Malone's mother, exhausted, finally met with the investigator, though a year had passed without any word about her missing son. The police hadn't thoroughly investigated the neighborhood or the basketball court where he often played. Their excuse: they had done their best. Yet one person was still missing, leaving her desperate for answers. The following morning, the police reviewed surveillance footage near the alley. On April 28, 1985, the subway camera clearly showed Vincent crossing the street to go to work, where he remained all day, proving he wasn't involved in any foul play. With the suspicion lifted, he was released without conditions. Despite this, the media was ruthless. The New York Post questioned Vincent's capabilities as a father, labeling him a failure. Around this time, Cassie received a chilling call, someone warning her that Edgar would never return. Exhausted, she went downstairs to see the landlord and turned her attention to the drawings Edgar had left behind. The sketches were innocent yet filled with imagination. As Cassie traced the images on the wall with her fingers, tears welled in her eyes. Ledroy, observing the wall covered in clues, realized the place where Edgar had gone missing was also a forgotten basketball court, coincidentally the same spot where Marlon, another missing boy, used to play. Vincent's troubles weren't over. He had a troubled past, and his repeated brushes with the law had caused the police to overlook certain disappearances. But Ledroy refused to ignore it. Determined to uncover the truth, he decided to reopen the case, focused on discovering the true identity of the mysterious. Number 8. His colleagues warned him against it, saying the enemy was too strong, and investigating further could be dangerous, but Ledroy pressed on. Meanwhile, Vincent received support from his editor-in-chief, who had helped him secure another chance at his project. Even the head of marketing and the director of children's animation attended, and Eric encouraged Vincent as he prepared to face the jury. The innovative puppet concept that Edgar had inspired a friendly monster in the forest, not frightening, but a companion for children, won approval. Colleagues joined in, holding puppets and bringing the concept to life, and the judges were impressed. To celebrate, everyone headed to a lavish nightclub, and Vincent continued living extravagantly despite Edgar's disappearance. Behind the scenes, though, a judge and the editor-in-chief quietly debated Vincent's role. The puppet project could continue, but Vincent himself was considered a liability. Once the most popular duo on the show, Vincent and the editor had created numerous beloved characters, yet the editor now controlled the majority of the investment. Vincent's pride was hurt when they argued fiercely over compensation, and in a moment of anger, he confronted the judge only to be calmed by his father's sudden presence. Their relationship remained distant, and Vincent's father responded coldly to his soft-spoken pleas. Cassie visited Marlon's mother, noting the similarities in their pain. Childhood toys and photos remained untouched by time. Cassie confessed that Edgar likely left because she and Vincent hadn't provided him a proper home. But Marlon's mother reminded her that Edgar had always been cared for and fed. Unlike Marlon, her grief carried anger too, a fire that never fully died. Cassie understood. Vincent had always blamed others, neglecting his own responsibilities, ignoring his wife and child, and escaping into alcohol and lavish nights with his lover. When Cassie revealed she was pregnant with her lover's child, Vincent was stunned. He stumbled to the alley where Edgar had disappeared, drinking to numb his confusion. Unnoticed in the subway tunnel, a small figure lay quietly, wearing the same jeans and shoes Edgar had when he vanished. Deep inside the subway tunnel, no one noticed a small figure lying motionless on the ground. The person was dressed in jeans and shoes identical to the ones Edgar wore on the day he vanished. Suddenly, a rope dropped down from above. At that moment, Vincent went to see the landlord, The old man told him that he had also once been consumed by darkness, but unlike others, he managed to survive. He said that as long as one keeps fighting, the darkness can never completely take you away. Vincent later found himself in the basement, staring at Edgar's old drawings. When he ran his hand across the rough sketches, he realized something shocking. These weren't just childish doodles. They formed a map, a clue that could finally lead him to his missing son. Meanwhile, Ledgerall was reviewing surveillance footage. He noticed that the janitor who had picked up Edgar's shirt had secretly stuffed a plastic bag into a trash bin. Suspicious, Ledgerall immediately went to the cleaning company for answers. But the worker was nervous and stammering, barely able to speak. Before Ledgerall could press further, the boss suddenly interrupted, telling the worker to get back to his duties. Without a search warrant, Ledgerall had no choice but to leave. What he didn't know was that the cleaning company was hiding something much bigger. They were involved in illegal activities, protected by powerful people no one dared confront to cover their tracks. The boss later took the employee to a bar under the pretense of having a meeting. When the man got drunk, he was beaten and thrown onto a garbage truck, disappearing into another city. Later, Ledgerall thought back to a colleague he had lost in a past car accident. That colleague had often worked with a man whose wife, Dana, happened to be close friends with an assistant still in contact with the police. Through this connection, Ledgerall managed to meet Dana. During their talk, the assistant revealed another shocking secret. The current owner of a luxurious nightclub, known as Gator, had once been arrested for illegal operations. Even more disturbing, one of Gator's former business partners was none other than Vincent's best friend, the same man now serving as the editor of the TV show. When Ledgerall questioned him, the editor admitted that he'd once been involved in shady dealings, but swore he'd never harm anyone close to Vincent's family. Ledgerall then showed him a picture of Marlon, the missing boy. The editor paused, clearly nervous, before finally giving him a clue. He told Ledgerall to look for someone named Ricardo. Earlier, the police had questioned Dana, but she claimed she never heard her partner mention anything about number 8. However, she remembered something odd. After her colleague died in a car crash, her partner seemed strangely relieved. Around that same time, his new car appeared with dents and scratches, as if something terrible had happened. After leaving Dana's place, Ledgerall spotted Vincent, who was rummaging through some papers. Vincent rushed over to him with excitement, holding one of Edgar's drawings. He insisted it wasn't just a sketch, it was a map leading to his missing son. Ledgerall didn't believe him, but Vincent didn't argue. Instead, he clutched the drawing tightly and set off on his own. Following the map's symbols, Vincent realized the landmarks around him perfectly matched what Edgar had drawn. In the underground tunnel, Vincent suddenly saw a man dressed entirely in black. He tried to follow, but Eric appeared out of nowhere, distracting him. When Vincent looked again, the mysterious man was gone. Days passed as Vincent continued to trace Edgar's clues. Even Eric began to grow frustrated, complaining that even puppets could get tired. Meanwhile, Cassie received a chilling phone call. The man on the other end claimed he had Edgar, and he knew every detail about the boy. He demanded $25,000 and told her to meet him at the phone booth on the corner that night. Panicked, Cassie tried to reach Vincent, but his phone was off. Desperate, she went to his workplace only to find out he'd been fired. Worse, the entire idea of Eric, the puppet that symbolized Edgar's imagination, had been stolen by the show. A new version of the puppet had just been unveiled downtown, with even the deputy mayor in attendance. Children loved the puppet, though it looked nothing like Edgar's original creation. Vincent stumbled upon the event by accident. As he watched the fake Eric on stage, his eyes filled with tears. The dream he built to find his son had been taken and twisted by others for fame. Meanwhile, Ledgerall tracked down Ricardo, the man the editor mentioned. Ricardo was wearing a red basketball jersey, the same kind Marlon loved. He explained that on the day Marlon disappeared, they had played basketball together all afternoon. Later that night, Marlon said he was meeting someone and swapped shirts with Ricardo before leaving. That was the last time anyone saw him. Ricardo's basketball jersey had the number 8 printed on it. He also revealed to Ledgerall that both he and Marlon worked part-time at a luxurious nightclub. If Marlon had gone there the night he vanished, the security cameras should have captured him. But the problem was, those recordings were constantly being deleted. Gator, the nightclub's owner, said he would try to help in the search, but no new leads came up. Marlon's disappearance hit a dead end once again. Meanwhile, the assistant managed to retrieve footage from a camera near Edgar's school. On the day Edgar disappeared, the video showed him walking behind a man wearing torn clothes. The police quickly noticed that this mysterious man looked strikingly similar to the figure Edgar had drawn in his sketchbook. If they could find this person, they might finally uncover what really happened. Ledgerall shared his theory with his superiors. He recalled that on the same night his fellow security officer was killed, the officer's partner came home unusually late, and his car had a noticeable dent on it. He also pointed out that when Marlon went missing, he had swapped shirts with Ricardo and was wearing the number 8 jersey. Ledgerall suspected that number 8 could be the very person connected to his partner's dark secret. It turned out both the partner and his late colleague had been taking bribes from the nightclub. Ledgerall believed the partner might have killed his own associate to hide the evidence. But when he presented this theory, his superiors shot it down immediately, ordering him to stop digging into Marlon's case and focus only on finding Edgar. Not long after, Ledgerall's boss privately met with that same partner and furiously demanded that he keep his wife quiet, clearly hinting that she knew too much. At the same time, Cassie and Vincent never discussed any ransom money, but Cassie was desperate. She decided to borrow cash from Vincent's family. Unfortunately, only Vincent's father knew where the safe key was. His wife told Cassie to stay home and rest while they handled things. Moments later, Vincent's father contacted the police himself, reporting that Edgar had been kidnapped and that the caller was demanding ransom. He said it was far too risky for Cassie to deliver the money on her own, so he requested police protection. Cassie vividly remembered the man's voice on the phone. He spoke with a heavy French accent and sounded like he was in his late 20s or early 30s. Using her description, the police created a sketch of the man, which matched the person seen talking to Edgar in the surveillance footage. Cassie had never met the man in question, but her boyfriend had. His name was Yusuf, and he lived deep inside the city's subway tunnels. Yusuf was known for sketching on tunnel walls and occasionally stealing small things to survive. But he wasn't considered dangerous. He had no serious criminal record. The police's plan was to let Cassie approach him first, so they could quietly arrest him afterward. Unfortunately, Ledgerall's superiors leaked Yusuf's name to the media before the operation could even begin. Once Yusuf saw his face on the news, he knew it was a setup and disappeared. That mistake ruined any chance of catching him easily. Meanwhile, Gator remembered something Ledgerall had told him earlier. He went back to check all of the nightclub's surveillance tapes and realized that only one recording, the footage from the night Marlon vanished, was missing. Every other tape was still there. The club's surveillance manager, TJ, had a reputation for shady behavior, but since he'd never caused serious trouble before, Gator had always ignored it. Now he began to wonder if Marlon's disappearance was somehow linked to TJ after all. That evening, at exactly 9 o'clock, Cassie showed up at the phone booth just as instructed, but Yusuf never came. He had already seen the wanted poster on TV and knew the police were waiting for him. The place wasn't what most people imagined. It was dimly lit, surrounded by piles of trash, spoiled food, and the constant stench of alcohol. Despite that, Yusuf tried his best to care for Edgar, even scavenging for fresh food to keep him fed. Lee, another member of the group, noticed Edgar right away, but for very different reasons. He knew that some wealthy people above ground had twisted desires, and TJ from the nightclub often acted as the middleman who supplied what they wanted. Lee began plotting to sell Edgar to TJ for cash, but Yusuf stood in his way. He protected Edgar fiercely, refusing to let anyone harm him. Around that same time, the deputy mayor was desperate to win the upcoming election. To make himself look good in front of voters, he decided to use Yusuf's story as part of a campaign to clean up the streets. His plan was to clear out all the homeless people living in the underground tunnels. Sadly, everything changed the moment the police announced a reward for Yusuf's capture, a decision that would soon put both Yusuf and Edgar in grave danger. Yusuf and the others were suddenly forced out. Left with no other choice, he handed Edgar over to Lee before leaving. As he departed, Yusuf gently told the boy to stay brave, no matter what happened next. Meanwhile, Vincent continued following the trail marked on Edgar's mysterious drawing. Along the way, he discovered murals that matched the same images Edgar had once drawn. The path led him deep into the subway system, and the ground littered with bodies of the forgotten. It was impossible to tell who was alive and who wasn't. At the far end of the tunnels, Vincent finally found what appeared to be the Vagrants' base, a hidden community of outcasts who had long been abandoned by society. Completely exhausted, he collapsed onto an old, torn sofa. As he sat there, memories flooded back. The day Edgar was born, how tiny he'd been, and how, back then, Vincent had felt as if he were holding his entire world in his arms. But 10 long years had passed. Life, work, and daily struggles had dulled that love. Vincent had thought being a father simply meant providing food and shelter. He never realized how much his child had needed affection and warmth. Now, as Vincent reflected, his eyes caught sight of a familiar red coat hanging nearby, the same color Edgar used to wear. Sirens echoed as officers forced the vagrants to flee. People scattered in every direction, but Vincent didn't run. He went deeper instead against the flow, pushing himself until his body gave out. Before collapsing, he caught one final glimpse, Edgar, being led up the stairs by Lee. Then tragedy struck. Edgar slipped on the steps and tumbled down, dragging Lee with him. That same night, Cassie was still waiting by the phone booth, hoping Yusuf would appear, but he never did. Meanwhile, Vincent regained consciousness and found himself in Yusuf's demolished shelter. The government's tunnel clearing operation had caused a flood in the subway lines, and chaos spread across the city. Hundreds of homeless people poured into the streets in protest, demanding justice. Gator finally got his hands on the missing surveillance tape from TJ, recorded the very day Marlon disappeared. The footage revealed Marlon wearing his red basketball jersey. Number 8. That same day, TJ introduced him to a mysterious man. But when Marlon refused to pay the protection fees demanded by the corrupt officers, he was beaten to death. When the camera panned back to the man behind it all, the truth was chilling. It was none other than the deputy mayor himself. Every piece of evidence now fit together perfectly. Ledroit made a bold move. He released the entire surveillance footage to all his fellow officers. Then, standing his ground, he demanded the immediate arrest of everyone involved, even his own team. He knew this could cost him his career, but he didn't care anymore. Meanwhile, Yusuf, unaware of the chaos above ground, returned home to gather his belongings only to run into Vincent. For the first time, Vincent realized that Yusuf had been the one following him the day Edgar vanished. Yusuf explained everything. The tunnels were dangerous, and Edgar had fallen by accident. Yusuf had only rescued and treated him out of compassion. Then, as if out of Vincent's own guilt, Eric, the puppet that had become a symbol of his broken family, appeared once again. He taunted Vincent, calling him a failure as a father. Edgar didn't hate monsters, Eric said. He hated being ignored. The words cut deep. Vincent snapped and fought back, blow after blow, anger, regret, pain, until Eric vanished into thin air, leaving Vincent alone once again. Soon after, the police made sweeping arrest. The deputy mayor and every accomplice tied to Marlon's death were taken into custody. Inside a sanitation truck, they discovered Marlon's missing number 8 jersey and walls plastered with posters of missing children. The horrifying truth came out. The deputy mayor had used the sanitation company as a cover, disposing of bodies and hiding evidence. They had been his cleanup crew all along. That red jersey was the last flicker of guilt from a man with no conscience left. But tragedy wasn't over yet. Police later found a woman's body by the river, wrapped in Edgar's red jacket. Not long after, the assistant received a mysterious call. Someone had spotted a boy matching Edgar's description in the park. There, crowds of the homeless had gathered to protest the government's brutal cleanup plan. Their chants filled the air. Everyone deserves a home. Everyone is human. And as those words echoed through the city, Vincent made his way through the tunnels one last time. He found the Eric costume hanging backstage. Slowly, he put it on. Step by step, he walked toward the park, heavy with guilt, hope, and the desperate need for redemption. Vincent stood on the platform, his voice trembling as he shouted Edgar's name into the crowd. The noise of the city faded. Vincent's voice cracked as he reached up and removed Eric's puppet head. He looked into the distance and whispered a quote that had always stayed with him. Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. Without wasting another second, he ran home, still wearing the heavy puppet costume. And just as he had hoped, Edgar was there, standing quietly outside their house, waiting. He had seen his father's heartfelt confession on TV and decided to come home. For the first time in a long while, everything was calm. But not every story ended happily. Marlon's body was found discarded in a garbage dump. Finding justice for him would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. His mother stood before reporters, tears in her eyes, and said, "Everyone deserves a safe city, a place to live with dignity. Not someday, but now." After that day, the shadow of Eric faded from Vincent's mind. Perhaps Eric had only ever been a symbol, a bridge between father and son, and the part of Vincent that still believed redemption was possible. He had found Edgar, saved his family, and discovered one final truth. Never rush to blame others. True change starts from within. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to subscribe to Cine Voice, hit the bell icon to stay updated, and join the journey.